Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast that every 2 weeks we watch an anime, we come together, and we talk about it on this podcast. And we had watched the second half of an anime, so if this is your very first time, we suggest going back to at least the last episode, because we watched Higurashi When They Cry Gou. This is the new retelling of Higurashi When They Cry, and we watched episodes 14 through 24, and that's what we'll be discussing here. So if you haven't watched those first half, either go back and watch that or listen to our first half of the discussion and then come back to here. To discuss this anime, I need the help of my co-host. And first off, we have the shovel to my soil, Jeremy. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Do you want to know what I've been up to lately? No.
I've actually, school is finally over. It's done. It finished this last week. So I have been just binging RimWorld. It's been really nice. And now I got to start catching up with stuff around the house soon. So, yeah.
Congratulations on finishing school, man. Nice job.
Thank you. Good work. Yeah.
So are you like done forever, or is this just for the year?
It's hinging on whether or not they take one of my previous credits from way back, different college. If they do, I'm completely done. They said they were going to, but it hasn't come through in the paperwork. If so, yep, completely done. So that's super awesome. Happy about that. Yep.
All right. And now we also have the hoe to my intestines, Jason.
If you've seen the anime, that's a horrifying statement.
It's a little spoilery, but it fits so well, I couldn't resist.
No, with Tanagashi.
I'm glad I can. Never mind. I'm gonna leave that alone. As normal, I am enthralled with Paths of Exile. The league's going well. There are lots of complaints. They did some things that make it a little less diverse as last league. Last league, I think, was a better league than this one. We're back to getting more meta instead of having a nice even distribution. But past that, I did go back and watch World War Z. It was not as good as the first time I saw it. It's still a fun movie. I think I think it's got this problem where you feel no danger for the protagonist. And besides that, it's an okay zombie movie.
Is it the Brad Pitt one?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
yeah.
You like literally at no point do I think, oh no, Brad Pitt's gonna fall out of the plane or he's gonna get eaten by zombies. No, he's fine.
As someone who mentions old movies and reviews them all the time on this podcast, it's just really to me. Here's an in-depth review of what I thought of World War Z 10 years later. But that is a fun movie. It's still really cool. I still like the mountain of zombies that crawl all over each other. It's still cool visuals. And my name is Troy. I finished the first season of Invincible. I mentioned it in the last podcast that I was watching Invincible, but the final episode hadn't aired yet. The final episode was fantastic. It was everything that had been building up to it. I still highly recommend that series. It's not satirical like The Boys is, but still being a superhero is not the fun thing we all imagine it to be. And it's a really good series.
Is it only 8 episodes?
It's only 8. And then season 2 and 3 have been ordered. So there's more to come. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And then last night with my family watched the Mitchells versus the Machines, which made by the same team who made Into the Spider-Verse, and same guys who did the Lego movies. When you have kids, there are kid movies that drive you bonkers. So when good ones come along, they are worth their weight in gold. and it's Phil Lord and Lord and Miller are the directors' names. The Lego Movie I've seen 100 times. My son was in love with that movie, but what's great about that movie is you can watch it 100 times and there's new jokes in it every time because they cram so much of that. They have this really fun, zany movie making thing that they do for their kid movies. Mitchell's versus the Machines was just like that. Hilarious. And also, for fathers of daughters that are nearing or gone to college, watch it with your daughters. It was very heartfelt, very well done story about the troubles we men have connecting to our adult daughters. And it was very hard. It was very fun. And the pug that is it a pig, a dog, a loaf of bread? We don't know. All right. So we are talking about Higurashi When They Cry Gou, episodes 14 through 24, like I mentioned before. Before we go into our spoiler section of this, let's talk about what we thought about this section. Jeremy, this is still your pick, right? Or was it Jason's pick? It was still your pick. Okay.
This was mine.
And I'm tired. Jeremy, what'd you think of this half of Higurashi When They Cry Gou?
So I was expecting a lot of answers, and you definitely get some answers. It was very interesting, very intriguing. The level of gore, especially on a particular episode, went above my threshold of comfort. But at the same time, I still found it really engaging, like the whole story. So yeah, I'm really torn as far as whether or not I like it, whether or not I would recommend it. Like, I think I would be very cautious about who I recommend it to.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, but I think it has a real interesting kernel of complexity there that I liked. So it was pretty cool.
All right, Jason, what did you think?
I really enjoyed myself. In the I'm terrified of this anime portion.
Always a good feeling.
Right? There's not a lot of anime, especially horror anime, that tend to give me the heebie-jeebies or the, really make me question why am I watching this anime. This one has some, it's got the body horror, but it's got some just great psychological horror to it, to where you go, not so much that could be me, but wow, what does this say about the human psyche? Like, what kind of things would break you? And it was an interesting exploration, and at the end, I thought it was very, very much, hey, this is what happens when you abuse these powers.
For me, we had a lot of nitpicks in the first half, and I felt like a lot of them got addressed, especially early on in the second half. And the first couple episodes, I was really into the mystery that was building and what was going on. And then it just, again, fell flat for me for all new reasons. But I felt like I was right back where I had left off in the first half, where I'm like, oh, I could see how this could get better. But also, I feel a little dismayed. I'm a little frustrated with their storytelling, but also realize that that's kind of my own fault for it. And I can get more into the spoiler section. So I kind of walked away a little dissatisfied again after having recovered from the last dissatisfaction, and then fell flat. And I'm in like a fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice.
So it's almost cyclical. So objective achieved.
Yeah, right. It's thematic the way it's disappointing me, but
Yeah.
Fool
can't get fooled again.
But there are really good things about it. So I don't want to put, if this thing is your jam, or I think especially if you're a fan of the original Higurashi, that this anime is going to be your jam, and I do feel that strongly. It's just not working for me at this point. The OP didn't change, although there were some changes to it. the ED does change about halfway through this half. Thoughts on either of those things?
I think my feelings from the first half are the same. I liked the visuals. I liked the music. It was nice and creepy. And I did like that they did a good job kind of showcasing the show without spoiling too much. And then the ED was fine. I don't really have anything of note to say about it. I think I watched it twice, and then I was done.
Yeah, I only watched it once, and I don't remember what it was. It was probably because I watched it on one of the first episodes of this second half, and so I didn't see the changes.
Oh, the new ED is the chandelier spinning and falling, and then like basically a spinning artwork of two characters round and around and around.
I do vaguely remember that. So it's also very thematic, which works very well. But yeah, I love the intro, love the music of it, and I do like the visuals of it. So that's all I can contribute there.
Yep. The outro made me a little spun a little too much. Getting a little dizzy. Did like the intro, and I did like the reveal of things that were in shadows. Once they are revealed in the anime, they're revealed in light in the OP. I always love an OP that evolves with the show, so that was cool. All right, then from there we're going on to our spoiler section. We had literally complained about the end of the third arc that a bunch of stuff happened off screen, and then we never got to see. We literally complained about it. Mm-hmm. We get to see it at the opening of this arc. Just to remind everyone who the characters are, we have Keiji, who's the new boy in town, Mion, who is the head daughter of one of the biggest families in this small village. There is Rena, who is his close friend, who also moved here probably a year before him and loves cute things, and who was the craziest of all the when the cycles go bad. I dropped spoiler warning, right? Spoiler warning.
Oh yeah, you did.
Okay. And then Sadako, the young blonde girl who was abused by her uncle and always cheats at games. And then Rika, who is now our main character. There has been a main character switch. And we had learned in the last one that she is a time looper, and that she's going through these different worlds trying to get to an outcome where she survives and has been trapped in this village. And we kind of get to follow her on her journey now and see things from her point of view. So what are your guys' thoughts on Rika in this half?
I did see the protagonist switch coming. I thought that was really cool that they switched from Keiichi to Rika. And come to find out, Rika's been our main protagonist this entire time. It was really cool to see, not expand more about the fragment thing we saw in the first half, but also kind of learn about this power and what she can do with it and what she can do about it if she wants to. So it was, I really liked her. It was cool because she didn't, we come to find out she's over 100 years old, or at least she's been doing this for over 100 years. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't seem like 100-year-old wise person. And I think that's interesting because it shows that she's been living this same juvenile time period, and she's been unable to get past that mentality. Even though there are some things she's very wise and very intelligent about, she's still very much a child in other ways. And that was cool to see.
Yeah, it's like her intellect is specialized just for
very
this.
much so.
Yeah. I really liked her as a character, but her span of time as the protagonist kind of is fairly short and really so futile, and she's just sort of reacting. All the scenes that we get from her are just her reactions to things. And so I kind of really would have loved it if we'd seen more of her proactive behavior. Like, what does she do to actually affect the world around her? Because I think that there's more character expression in that than there is necessarily to just a string of reactions. And so I was a little bit sad by that. But yeah, this character was fascinating to me as soon as I found out that she was a looper in the first half of this season. So just getting any more screen time with her was really cool.
I really liked her in these first couple episodes where she is the main protagonist. Especially, she's obviously going through a very tough time. Again, this is actually a sequel to the original Higurashi When They Cry, and had gone through those 100 years of dying over and over, and had finally won, and then finds it started again. And she doesn't know why. She's like, wait, why am I here? I have questions about why she know that. It doesn't matter. But we also get to see her slightly older after having gone through such huge thing, and kind of not being as good of a person as I thought she would be. And she's not. I don't think she's completely in the wrong in that scenario when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think she's a little bit in the wrong, and also kind of blind to what's going on. Almost purposely, like she got her wish, and so now she's just whatever. and it kind of bugged me.
Yeah, I disagree.
All right, you want to hash it out when we get there?
Yeah,
fine. I'll see you there. Behind the School, episode 17.
Yeah. Watch for chandeliers.
Oof.
All right. So yeah. So we get to see the events of the festival that night from the third arc that we ended in the last half, which is basically the cop Oishi shows up and starts. He's attacking Rika, and he starts killing anyone who gets in his way.
Isn't he dragging the bat?
He is. He's carrying Keiichi's bat that the uncle had attacked Keiichi with, and then Keiichi killed Sadako's uncle with. And grabs Rika. These men are like, "Hey, you need to stop!" And so he shoots them, and he basically just murders everyone.
This is the scene that is done off scene when Rena breaks the news to Keiji.
Right. Mm-hmm. He murders everyone except for Rena, who got kind of swept away by the crowd. Even Sadako shows up and gets murdered. So then we have Rika back at the void, the dimension between these multiple worlds, in between her time loop, and the girl Hanyu is there. Hanyu is a much.
So, sorry, not to cut you off too much, but I think this is the first time that the person who goes crazy, it like interrogates,
Rika?
Why can't I think of her name?
Rika.
Gee, right, I was trying to come up with a K. Yeah, no, I think this is the first time that the person that goes crazy interrogates Rika about what she knows, and like, are the bugs in my head or my neck, it's because of you know something. I don't think we ever get like an answer to what it's looking for, but they always target her, and I think that's interesting, and I would like to know more about that, but I don't know if we ever get answers to it.
I have a theory.
No, it's not a theory, it's obvious.
No, okay, fine. It's okay. It's probably obvious, but I have a thought in this regard. Sadako told him. Sadako told him Rika's responsible for the bugs in your head. Rika knows the answer.
Oh, okay.
Because remember in one of the next scenes, Keiichi says it. He's like, "Tell me, how do I fix it?" Okay,
never mind. I'm good.
Yeah,
I thought there was more to it.
It's a deep theory, Troy.
It's not. I'm not frustrated with you, Jeremy. I'm actually frustrated with the anime because they're pretending it's something like that's a mystery, and I'm like, that is super obvious. I know. Once we know, at this point we don't. So that's the big mystery that's
Yeah.
going on, is there is a second time looper, and that's what Rika finds out. Not only is this the first time since we've been watching that she retains her memories from this world, which is odd.
Now, I will say that it wasn't clear at this time that was the case, because we had no idea who the second looper was. We had no idea that Sadako would have told him that. It didn't even click in my head that he
Right.
was dragging the baseball bat. I was just like, oh, he's got a bat.
It'll be later revealed that Sadako is a second time looper and she is a villain. But yes, and actually, I wrote out to you guys like, oh, I'm so frustrated because once I knew there was a second looper, I was trying to figure out who it was, and it was between Rena and Sadako, and only because of like Rena hasn't had a backstory yet. Sadako's in a certain scene in the OP that's suspicious, but nothing really story wise. So I doubled down on Rena. I was wrong. But in this scene, Oishi's got Keiichi's bat, so which means he went to the crime scene where the uncle was murdered. He was at Sadako's house. Sadako still shows up after him, which means she followed him there. If there's a second looper and they're causing all this, who would have been alone with Oishi? There's only one person it could have been.
Yeah.
Wait, so that means Sadako tricked her uncle into coming there to attack Keiichi.
Yeah.
Oh
Exactly.
my god.
Yep.
She is awful.
Yep. That's why she said, Keiichi, there's something in here I got to show you. Something in here, please.
Right.
So we didn't realize this, and one of my frustrations about this anime is that it is a true sequel, and I think if you had watched the original, you got a lot more out of this. And I got frustrated because we had told it was mostly a remake, but it's kind of a sequel. No, this is a full-on sequel. What we didn't realize in those first 3 story arcs is that every time something was about to go wrong, Rika knew exactly what to do to fix it. And those moments where she would talk to Keiichi to steer him right was her fixing that world. So when in the first arc, Keiichi's starting to freak out about Rena, she goes to him and she's like, "You're just being paranoid." Because in the original anime, he's going to murder her out of paranoia. And she stops that. But Rena gets infected and re-breaks that timeline.
Okay.
And that's what happened with every timeline. And we saw Mion. Oh, it was it was Rika. She did this. But again, Rika had already fixed that timeline. She knows every timeline well enough that she knows where to push at just the right point to put it on its right path. And she's been doing that. And we like when she told, hey, give Mion the doll instead. That was her fixing that world. But Sadako's been re-breaking it. But we never got that because we had no idea.
We didn't watch the first time.
We never watched the first one. We never realized, oh my god, if that's he gets the doll door, that's going to fix that timeline.
I knew we should have watched the first one.
But that's not on us because this whole series was advertised as just a remake.
And
And
plus, they were fighting something else back then. I mean, we get hints as to what it was, but it was a completely different scenario. What the threat was.
Right. It was.
The government.
Yeah. A branch of the government.
Anyway, so yeah, Rika's in the void. She's told, your full powers have reawakened, so you will now remember what happened when you died and who killed you. She's also really confused that it was Oishi. She's like, why Oishi? It's never Oishi. That's never a thing. This is completely new and random, and it really freaks her out. Like, I know how all these end. How come there's this new ending that shouldn't take place? And then this Horn Girl Hanyu, who is a big deal in the first anime, she actually literally becomes physical and helps them defeat.
I was so confused.
Yeah,
There's
me
that
too.
moment where like the what's her face is getting arrested, and they're all standing there in a line, and there's Demon Girl, and I'm like, wait, she's real?
Yeah.
that she makes herself real to help break the cycle. And that is the actual ending of the original anime. That was the good ending. That's how that scene.
I don't like that as a good ending. Go on.
Hanyu says, I have to go. I can't stay anymore. You're on your own. But she says there's another looper, which we've already revealed, and there's a sword, hidden in the storehouse, the statue that had broken. Jason, you had pointed out something was inside of it. Nice catch. It's a sword that can kill time loopers.
Now, did you guys watch the dub or the sub? It was the dub, right?
At this point, it's dub. The dub ran out, and I had to switch to sub about halfway through.
Did she actually say there is another looper? Because that's not what she said in the sub.
I was just about to make that point, is that that was the reason I didn't catch that there was a current second looper. She just mentioned there is a sword that can kill, that can sever the loops. Mm-hmm. And that she didn't come across as if she was suggesting suicide, which is how Rika took it. Mm-hmm. I assumed at this point, other people are affected by these demon people in this town, and there's been loopers before, and there's going to be loopers after. I didn't put two and two together that, she's talking about finding the person that's making her life miserable and ending her loops.
Yeah, I got the sense that there was an antagonist specifically, but I wasn't sure. I didn't think it'd be her close friends.
That's interesting. I walked out of this conversation thinking there's a second time looper. Now I'm wondering, like, had I read something before? Did my daughter make a comment that clued me in, or did I just pick up on something in this conversation? But anyway, there's a sword. It'll kill time loopers. And Rika's very upset because she basically, I won. I defeated the challenge after 100 years, and now I'm back, and that sucks so bad.
I can't do this without you.
She loops again, and there's a club game, and she's like, they all notice she's feeling depressed, and all her friends are like, hey, why don't you pick the game? She's like, let's play hide and seek. You all search for me, and I'll go hide. And she goes straight to the storehouse. They're all searching. They search for till sundown, which is when the game ends, but they decide not to give up and find her anyway because they figure she needs help. And she goes to the storehouse, and the sword is gone. And there's only a shard remaining, but she's like, well, I guess that'll do. And she's getting ready to kill herself. And then she hears her friends outside, and she's like, all right, 5 more times.
Now that I know there's a way out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can try 5 more times. Then we see the group looking for things for an auction for the festival. They go to the game store. They're at the game store. They find a mahjong board set up, and they're talking about this. It's an illegal but secret move where you flip the tiles. Really cool. And Sadako tries it, and she fails. And then Oishi shows up, and he was the one who had mentioned it to the store owner, and he's like, oh yeah, I know how to do it. And he shows him how to do it. And then this character named Akisaka shows up, and Rika's like, I know him, and he can be of help. And she goes up to him, and she had warned him in the past. Now this is, again, probably something that came up in the first anime, but it sounded like it happened even before 1983, so I'm not really sure how he fits in. But she had helped him with his wife and child in the past, or just his wife.
He was going to go off to something, and she said, no, you need to go back to your wife, because if you're not there, she's going to fall down some stairs and die. And so he goes back, and someone else ended up falling down the stairs and dying instead of her.
And so she asks him a favor if he can stay in town for the village, thinking this is an ally I can trust, and he can help me through this time loop. And then we jump cut to the end of this time loop, and he's murdering her, and he's scratching his neck. Also, if the scratching the neck, of all the horrible things we see, the scratching the neck bothers me every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, me too.
Very cool. So bad. Yeah, so, and he's setting the building on fire. Her friends are, Keiichi's literally trying to run in while the building explodes, and she's like, well, this is ironic, don't you think?
She starts laughing to herself.
Yeah, and then we go to another. We see her. She's holding out 5 fingers as she dies, and she turns it to 4, and then she snaps. Snapping. I don't think it triggers the loop, but
no. I have a thought on this. This was so cool, I thought, because initially when this started happening, I was like, okay, so this is just some new thing that she's doing. This doesn't really make any sense why she's doing this. But who else does this every time?
Right, the other looper.
Sadako does. So if this stuff accumulates with every loop, at this point, did she pick up Sadako's snap without even realizing
Oh,
that
I
that's
like
where she
that.
got it?
That'd be cool.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I think that's why she's doing it.
Very cool theory. That is a good theory, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I like that. Troy's over here. Yay!
So now we jump through just a bunch of brutal murder scenes. We get
Oh my god. This was the episode.
Shion is murdering people. She kills Mion. Rika tells her that. Oh no, it's not Shion. It's Shion's mom. It's
Yeah, it's
Mion
mom.
and Shion's mom. Which again is not one of the people that's usually involved in the time loops going wrong. And Rika's like, we're just stuck in this fate as she's dying. More scratching at the neck. And then we get the mayor dragging Rika out into a boat in the middle of the woods and then dumping her in the swamp. As
Actually, this is one of my favorite scenes. He's going on his like psychotic rant, and she's just like, "Just toss me in." He's like, "Oh, you're helping," and she's like, "No, I would just rather drown than continue listening to you."
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to drag me. Just kill me. Come on.
Just kill me now.
It's just so annoying.
Yeah.
And then we have Keiichi murdering people
this was
at
rough.
the cosplay cafe. And every time he brings his bat down on someone's head, their eyes just bulge out.
Oh.
Pretty rough. I do love. So he's like, Rika, tell me the answer. How do I get rid of the parasites? Scratch, scratch, scratch. And she's like, eat my brains. He's like, yes, that'll do it. You know, when you die this many times, it does kind of make sense you'd have a sick sense of humor. Like, might as well make him eat brains.
Then here.
And then, yeah, that's actually the end of that episode. Except for she does mention she wants to go back to her academy. She's mentioned this. I think she mentioned this to Hanyu, too, when she was in the Void, that she had gone 5 years past 1983, and she was going to high school at an academy. She remembers that and doesn't understand why she'd be here. I don't know why she can remember that.
I think it's because of the other demon.
I think you're right, because
Because Sadako asks her specifically, can you make it so she remembers my loops as well, but not her death?
Mm-hmm. So she's only forgetting like hours before the death.
I was really confused when Sadako asked that. We'll get to that scene so you can explain it to me a little better.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then, yeah, in the next episode, she wakes up with Sadako over her. It's like the middle of the night. This one's really rough. And Sadako's like being all creepy, and she's like, hold on, let me pull back this blanket. She pulls back the blanket. I'm like, oh, her legs are going to be gone. Classic Japanese horror, body horror. You know, the legs are missing underneath the blanket. Nope, she's in half. And her intestines
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Just
she's
her,
cut open and her intestines are out.
Yeah,
right,
she's
but she's
basically
not
skinned.
in half yet.
Yeah, the muscles and the skin have been cut away.
Okay.
Yeah, just exposing her guts.
Okay, I see. Yeah, and Sadako pulls out the sacred hoe from the festival dance and starts chopping her and telling her that Lord Ermagerd. We decided after the last podcast that we could not remember that Lord's name, so we have renamed him Lord Ermagerd.
Oh, y'all should know.
Nope,
That's
Jason.
not as fun.
Why would you ruin it?
Because you degenerates can't remember a name.
Do not disrespect her, my guard.
Lord Ermagerd will be mad at your sins, Jason.
That's right.
Don't come to my house with any gardening tools, please.
So basically scolding her for why would you want to leave the village? Why would you betray our lord? Why you're hurting his feelings and you're hurting everyone around you. And Rika, she's also injecting Rika with anesthesia.
Yeah.
And makes the comment that the doctor, the coach, the baseball coach, has been having her do her own injections. And we didn't really have context for this yet. And I'm like, we were right. He is a creep.
Yeah.
He's not.
Well, he is, but not as bad as we used to see.
Yeah, he's not. I thought for sure, like, oh, the reveal is he's a like a pervert. Nope. Just keep tricking me, anime. Yeah, and so Rika has this self-reflective moment where she's literally her high school self is talking with her current self and talking about why she wanted to leave the village, because it had been a prison for her for so long. She, getting to escape. But honestly, this is a good place. She likes being here. If it wasn't for the 100 years of suffering there, that wouldn't be the case. Basically, and then comes out of it still getting hoed down. Apologizes to Sadako, and
Sadako goes to hug her and like pick her up, but her bottom half doesn't move with her when she picks her up.
Yep.
Oof.
Yep.
This scene was rough.
But as she's hugging her, she's still reaching in because she hasn't apologized quite yet. This is when they're still like, she's still explaining why it's so bad that she wanted to leave. She's literally pulling out sections of intestine and just throwing it behind her as she's talking to her. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so much farther than I can take. What the heck? But I have to say that every other character, when they went on their killing spree at the end of their episodes, they looked crazed. Sadako didn't look crazed. Now, she did scratch her neck once.
Yeah, I think she is infected. But
not nearly as bad as everyone else, though.
Exactly. And this was another thing where I was like, why is she in so much control? Why is she so lucid? And, I mean, obviously it makes sense later when we find out that
I think she was faking it.
But that's even worse. That is so bad. Like, all the people that she killed, sure, because she injected someone else and had them do the dirty work. Presumably. We don't know the exact details. Maybe she stabbed someone here or shot someone there. But the fact that she actually, this person that she professes to love as her best friend, she takes a hoe and guts her with it and pulls her intestines out by hand. This is what you do to your friend, and it's justified because she wants to go to school and do well without you, and then
nope.
And it's justified by the fact that
we'll get into it more later. At least I'll give you my perspective of like how she justifies this particular scene.
I know what you're talking about, and I agree with you because I know where you're going with it. I just didn't want to spoil anything too far, but like she's such a sociopath. She's such a psychopath.
But at this point, we're unsure who the second Looper is, right? And we think, she's scratching her neck. She must be infected. Is that right?
These thoughts were going through my mind, though, where I was like, she's not acting like them.
We don't have any context of high school yet, right?
No.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like, honestly, when this scene was playing out, I'm like, this is different. She's not like what she's upset about is different from everybody else. She definitely seems and the way she kept mentioning she mentions her dreams, which Rika, when she wakes up from a loop, will say, I had a bad dream. And Sadako mentions the dreams almost like, I know what you mean when you say that. So yeah, there's definitely suspicious behavior there. I know what Jason is also going to say, and we will let you say it when we get there. While I understand that realization, I also don't agree with it. I'm more on Jeremy's side, but we will hash that out later.
Well, but she also says, Lord Ermengarde has made me her new prophet.
Mm-hmm.
She's made me her new prophet. I've had a revelation that the reason you're suffering so much and the reason you're having these dreams is because of something you did, because you wanted to leave. And I'm like, whoa.
It's all manipulation, lying, in my opinion.
Yeah, but like you said, at that point in time, we didn't know that she'd have a reason to manipulate. So it was like, I was wondering, okay, did she actually have a revelation this is really weird because this is so unlike the others. Her behavior, like, this is not the Satoko I know.
Well,
what is going on?
It's muddied a little bit because the mayor was using her as a ritual for Lord Irashdo. Oh, geez. Oh, my God. In the lake. So that muddied this scene a little bit, like going, oh, does the virus sometimes make you think bugs, and then other times it makes you think you're doing the Lord's work? Like, what's going on?
That's true.
She loops and wakes up at the river, and all her friends are having a fun beach day episode.
It finally happened.
And after a fun day playing at the beach, she tells Sadako that she doesn't want to leave the village. She wants to stay here with her forever. And they hug and they cry. And then things pass on. Time starts going, and nothing bad is happening. There's no worries about a curse. The festival comes, and she sees Tomitake, who we know as the photographer. We at this point, we now know he's not a photographer. He's a special ops soldier.
Yep.
We knew he was not, but we didn't know what he was.
And Mio are sneaking out into the woods like they do.
He and the Tanaka or whatever her name is. Not Mio.
Mio.
Is it Mio?
Mio is her first.
Mio Tanaka.
Mio versus Mion. I always get that confused.
Oh.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Mio is the nurse, and it is Mio Tanaka. And she's like, hey, I want to talk to you, Rika. And then the next episode starts with showing Mio killing everyone with a gun.
Right. Which, honestly, we haven't seen anything in this season to indicate that she ever was a threat to them.
Right.
This was really, really abrupt for me.
And
Left field.
So so we will find out. She is the original anime antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
She was behind everything. And Rika is the queen carrier of the parasite.
That's the impression I got.
By killing her, it releases it into the population.
Either I didn't know if by killing her it releases it, or if she just releases it in proximity.
No, that's why she was dying in every loop, because the plan is always to murder Rika.
To release it. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
It does now.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, this is very much a sequel. So anyway, but then we come back to where we were. The chronology gets a little confusing, not only just because of time loops, but it does literally just jump around. Hey, here's a random scene from the original anime, just so you know, and then doesn't tell you that, and then, but also sometimes it jumps forward to a different time loop.
Mm-hmm.
So when this scene starts of her shooting everyone, it's like, did we go forward? Did we go back? It was technically back. And then we come back to the night, and Mio apologizes to Rika, says, I was going to kill you and all your friends, and I feel really bad about it. And, but I'm going to set things right. And Tomitake's like, I'm going to take her. She's going to be a key witness, and we're going to stop this whole thing.
Because in some loops, Mio is infected, and in some loops she's not. But it seems like there are like multiple loops where she is infected, like she's injected herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
or somehow gotten it.
Yeah, and you're right. I'm not 100% sure which is which or when is when. But honestly, when I was thinking about this anime's antagonist, and I was like, that's really a better motivation, that she's crazy and wants to set a virus loose, and that's kind of better. That's a better villain motivation. Anyway,
yeah,
Rika's like, okay. So from her point of view, she has to work really hard to get this to happen, and she hasn't done anything, and it happened anyway. And I do love the reason we get this is a really cool thing. I love the mechanic that they explain why this is happening. Like we had talked about things. She's learned how to make things go right. There's someone obviously putting things wrong, but now things are actually on autopilot going right. No one's affecting them, and they're still going right. We see the mountain dogs get arrested by the bloodhounds.
Mm-hmm.
which basically there's a military group that was there to help Mio spread the parasite, and there's another military group that Tomataki's in charge of that's there to stop them. Tomataki,
Tomataki and Mio seem to have some history.
Mm-hmm.
they seem to have a relationship, at least in some form. But yeah, we see like they look like gardeners, but they're those men in those suits, and then they get arrested by other men in other suits. And since we have no context of the original anime, it's like, okay, guys are pulling guns on each other, and I'm like, okay, I guess.
Yeah. Very confusing.
This felt so weird.
They lock down the clinic, and this is why it's under renovations. When eventually Keiji will visit it, they're actually stopping the bad guys from taking over this clinic where the parasite is. And guess who's the source? It's Sadako's brother. He's in a coma being treated for this disease. And they were like, oh, look, there's a suitcase and it has these syringes and you can inject people with it. And I'm like, oh, so there's a time looper and there's a way to make people sick. Thank you, anime. That's all I needed to know. And the anime's like, wait, there's a mystery here. I'm like, there really isn't. It's time looper. One of the most OP power. It's a horrible power, but it's a very OP power. There's nothing you can't steal if you're a time looper.
Did you see Groundhog Day?
And I think when they open it, one of the canisters is actually missing in this scene. And yeah, it's a parasite that makes you go crazy. That's what the scratching and the murder has all been. And so they've cut the bioweapon. Tomataki visits Rika and he's like, yeah, everything's okay. She's being a star witness where the world has been saved. And Rika's like, but I didn't do anything. This is weird. I don't trust this. What's going on?
She chalks it up to just rolling sixes every event, because she's been, very much, fate is in control. I can only roll the dice, and she feels like she's basically just winning at a casino this whole loop, which is a very interesting contrast to our other looper.
Right. Her analogy has always been every time she's affected the timeline to try to fix it as re-rolling the dice once and just seeing if they land better. And so now she's saying, again, the dice are all coming up sixes the first try. That's weird. But things go on. The game club gets together and they play a game. Rika ends up winning and hands a secret note as punishment to every member. And it gives them instructions. And they all are like, yep, we'll do it. And they all leave. And the next day they come back. And the instructions were, hey, we're having a birthday party for Sadako. And they got her presents and they stuff. And Rika pulls out her present and turns to give it to Sadako. And it's the punching glove box that seems so silly in the first half storyline. And Sadako ducks. And Rika's like, opens it, and there's a teddy bear inside?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she's like, how did you know there used to be a punching glove in this? And Sadako pulls out a gun. And this is as far as we go in this timeline, in the real timeline of the story. We never go past this moment. And I kept waiting.
I did too. I did too.
And the final episode, halfway through, I literally paused it like, how much time is left? When are we jumping? We're not going back to that scene ever, are we? Oh my god. And because the chronology is mixed up, I wasn't even 100% sure where we were in relation to this in those final couple of episodes. And it wasn't until the final moment I'm like, oh, we're at the beginning of the anime. I'll talk about that later. Yeah, pulls out a gun. And then
where, by the way?
I know, right? Was it Mion's gun? I just, it was really confusing.
Which means does Mion carry a real gun the whole time?
I assumed that she did.
I assume she doesn't. I've always assumed it was a toy.
I thought it was real because of the OP. It always had a gun in there, and I thought it must be real.
I guess that's true. All the other weapons are real that everyone else is carrying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess in Hinamizawa, they've got open carry.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right.
Then we come to episode 18. Episode 18. Okay, so actually, now that we've come to the reveal of our second time looper, Sadako, we've already said it. Sadako's the villain, but now I do want to talk about the character Sadako. She's about to become the main protagonist. So, what do you guys think of Sadako?
I really like this character. It's interesting that we get to watch somebody who is a very competitive person, who, when it comes to games, they're willing to cheat and steal and do whatever, set traps, do whatever they need to do to win. This whole second half of this part of the anime is for me was the birth of a supervillain. We get to see someone who starts off with very real world pain, real world reasoning of her actions, and having it just mutate into this obsession with winning and a lack of empathy and concern for the people around her, and finally coming to a point where she just sees people as tools and things to her ends instead of people. And we see that very clearly when it comes to her father later on, or not her father, but her uncle. But yeah, I thought it was pretty neat taking it from her perspective.
Yeah, she was satisfyingly complex, but oh my god, did I dislike her. And I think that's intended, obviously. Like, she is horrible, but it's this sort of sense of when a character can become that psychotic and that sociopathic toward everyone else, to where they're even just able to say, oh, well, they're not real because that's not going to be the final timeline. This is just me working towards it. I'm just grinding through the timelines. That just, oh my god, that rubbed me so wrong. But I understand that that's part of the growth of a villain, like you're saying, Jason. It was good writing for a villain, but it's not who I thought Sadako was. She was the victim in the first half of this season. A huge victim. Like, we even saw that scene where she had a mental breakdown in class. And we were all saying that was an amazing scene. That hurt, But now, knowing that that was an act. That was an act. And even if it wasn't an act, it's so much harder to feel sympathy for someone who exposes this side of their personality later.
It's also 100% act.
Yeah,
for sure.
And if it is, yeah, okay.
Which that makes so much sense why her uncle would be so upset that people keep coming to his house accusing him of child abuse. Like, no wonder he was pissed at people coming to his door.
Because she was lying about it all the way, because he was being a nice guy.
Right.
And when we see him become redeemed because of the time looping, or becoming the good guy because of the time looping, that's before that third arc. And so every loop after that, he will be a good guy in that loop.
And I was thinking, when that happened and he actually became a good guy, I was like, oh wow, this is really cool, because they're adding the complexity of, do you keep going after this thing that's clearly making you evil, or do you appreciate the change that you have created in someone who was bad before? Now they're really good. Do you want to preserve that? You've fixed your uncle. Can't that just be good enough? Isn't that? Do you want to risk losing that? Huh?
He's now a tool. He's now a resource to use.
Yeah, and
in her own ends.
Yeah, and that's where I was like,
makes her even worse.
Yeah, you're so horrible. Like, wow, this is just almost caricature levels of evil. Just compared to where she was, as far as her behavior was in the first half of this season. And I know it was an act, but that's who I thought she was. And so this just seems like caricature levels of evil. And that's cool. That's a cool complexity, but it's also a frustrating complexity.
Actually, it's funny that you say caricature because it fits so well with her fake laugh that she does.
Yes. Her
She's
and
telling
the
us-
detective.
She was telling us the whole time.
Yep.
I do like her as a character. I don't like her motivations that set her on this path. That's not really the character's fault. That's more the writing, and we'll get into that where we get there. I do like that the characteristics that make her a good villain have been very well established from when she was not a villain in the story. She likes to cheat to win. And the fact that now that's applying to this horrible murder death loop situation just makes that worse, but also totally fits into everything pre-established for her. I also really enjoy that we have a time looper who's like, I'm time looping this right. Like, this is a game. I know how to play it. I'm gonna bend these rules. We've obviously watched ReZero, which is about time looping, and when he started to do that same thing, the anime smacks him down. But this anime says, "Well, you're doing a great job. Keep going."
Yeah. See where this takes you.
And how it affects her. I'm pretty sure that these loops don't end when the loopers leave them, and I'd wonder if that would change her decision making. So yeah, as a villain, I also wonder if the fact that she is an abuse victim is playing into it, because she was abused at one point. Even if the uncle becomes a better person, he was abusive at one point.
Yes.
And that's very much real. And I'm wondering if there is some kind of psychology of the victim becoming an abuser and her not even realizing that. I don't know if that's intentional or not. I don't even know if it's 100% a real world thing. I've heard it, but it's like those eat spiders at night. I don't know if it's a real thing. But I do wonder if that's intentional. That's why she became the villain, is because she was an abuse victim and has now become, in her own way, an abuser to everyone else.
Mm-hmm. There was another thing regarding this character that I thought was really cool, and it's actually not just her, it's both her and Rika, and that is the way that the anime composed its introduction of characters. The fact that we get introduced to Keiichi and Mion and Rena, and we spend all our time with them, and Rika and Sadako are both kind of sort of tagging along, a little bit less consequential throughout the first half of the season, is really, really cool, because finding out that they're the main characters, really. The other guys really didn't matter compared to these ones. No. They're making all the choices. I really like that touch. That's cool.
I do want to say, Jeremy was right in the last podcast episode. Their eyes lighting up is artistic.
It is.
when it happened in the Void world, I nearly threw my pen. I was like, "Yeah, no."
Yeah, there was a moment where she I thought, oh, okay, so the eyes light up whenever they're watching a shard. Mm-hmm. But even then, I don't think that's the case, because it's just whenever they feel like artistically doing it.
Yeah, like I said, it happens in the Void world, and I'm like, well, this is where, if it was a puppet master situation, this is where that puppet master would be. So that would make no sense for it to happen here.
Yep.
Poop. All right. So, episode 18 starts where the first anime ends. Mio is arrested after trying to kill the kids.
She gets a shot off, and she misses?
She even exclaims, "At this range?"
And she gets the notebook, or her grandfather's notes about the parasite knocked out of her hand.
And there's a demon girl. It's like, what? Where did you come from?
Yep. Tomotaki arrests her, and he's like, yeah, she's got the disease, and he's like, hey, I'll help you. And she's like, but after everything I've done, he's like, yeah, but you have the disease, so it's cool.
And I've got
to start over.
Yeah, and I did also write Hanyu is with the group. I didn't realize at the time, though, this was the end of the first anime, but now in context with everything we know, this is the end of the original anime, or at least the climax resolution. This is when they defeat the time loop. And so what we watch now is we jump to June 4th, 1984. Rika and Sadako are going to school. Mion has gone on to high school. Shion is at a fancy high school at St. Luca's. I don't know if she was already at St. Luca's, but that wouldn't make sense since her and Neon were twins.
Wait,
But that would explain why.
The St. Lucas, isn't that the one that
Yeah.
Rika goes to?
Yeah, Rika's like, I want to go to that one. They're like, oh, that's where Shion goes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I missed that.
But we had talked about how Shion's in a school uniform in the other half.
Mhm.
Also, this anime is never going to address why there was a loop where no one knew that Shion existed.
Yeah.
Even though the one caveat I had that it was Rena who didn't know Shion existed, and she'd only been there a year. It could be possible that Rika and Sadako knew that Shion existed, but it's still weird Rena didn't. All right. Anyway, moving on. Keiichi is now the leader of the gaming club. He's let basically everybody into it. They play fairly now. Sadako hates it. She's never allowed to cheat. They use like new cards when they play the memory game, so she can't mark them. And she actually loses for that day. They go to the clinic, and Sadako, for her treatment of the virus or the parasite, she's been sick for a while and being treated for a while, and they test and they're like, hey, we think this is gone. And then they do more tests, and the next day they're like, yeah, she's been cured. And Rika's like, you said that would never be possible. And the doctor's like, burp burp, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Cure's gonna cure.
Jeremy, you have you think this is interesting, right?
Which part?
That they say she's cured.
Yeah, why would they say you said this wasn't curable unless that means something to us? So it's either saying, hey, we're correcting something that we said, we're retroactively correcting something from the first time we watched this, right, the original series, or they're leaving a little thread there so that later we realize, oh, okay, so she's a little bit psychotic. There's a thread of that's actually coming from this disease that she's got, these brain worms, and it's not necessarily all her fart, which might which might actually make her redeemable. And that would be really annoying. And you mentioned this in the comments too when we were watching the show. You're like, if they redeem her, and I totally agree. But in the long term too, like if they redeem her, I'm gonna be kind of sad.
Yeah, I do think this is shown for a reason. I just have no idea what that reason is. But I don't think this is just a throwaway scene. I think it ties into something. I just don't know. The festival. Oh yeah. So that next year, Rika goes to the mayor and to Mion's grandmother and ask for a favor. And they at that festival that year, they all three come together. And they're known as the three heads of the village. Rika's the last surviving member of her family, so she's the head of the family. But they are considered the three heads. Mm-hmm. And they announce that officially the damn war is over. That one 4 years ago we don't talk about? We're officially calling it over, which means no more grudges, no more being mad at the Hojos. All that bygones be bygones. We let it go. The sins are in the past. And there is no curse. It's hooey fooey. I'm not the reincarnation of a god. Let's let all that creepy stuff go. And then life goes on, things are going good, and then Rika's like, I want to go shopping at town, real town. And they go to a bookstore with Sadako, and she picks up an entrance exam test guide or study guide, and she's like, wait, that's for St. Luca Academy. She's like, yeah, that's my dream. I want to go to this prestigious school, and I'm going to start studying right now so that in how many years I can go get into that high school, and I want you to come with me. And Sadako's like, oh, okay, you know what? Classic Rika. It's like me in like rollerblades. Like, oh, this is super fun. And like a month later, they're in my closet. That's what Sadako's assuming is going to happen. But Rika has asked the teacher for help. She has Keiichi for help. She has Rena for help. Also, Rena, we were way off. Not crazy at all. Not
No.
a crazy person in any way.
Mhm.
Just in that loop, her and Keiichi both give in to paranoia, I guess, and things go bad. But not a crazy person. Very, very nice person.
And this is the first time we've made it past the 22nd. Is that right?
I think we got to 23rd at some point. I swear that I saw that calendar.
I don't know, but we're a whole year ahead now.
But yeah, we're way
Yeah,
past that
we're in
now.
1984 now, but
Yeah.
it's hard because maybe I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know.
so they start helping her, and then Sadako notices she's studying late into the night, and so she goes and joins her, and she's like, "Fine, let's do this." And Sadako hates studying, but as long as she puts effort into something, she can get stuff done. It's not her forte. She's not smart, but she can, with effort, power through anything. And they study for however many years, and we just get this montage of them studying and working together.
Like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So then in 1987, they go, so it's March 1st, 1987, they go and to the school to see their test scores and see if they got in. The anime draws this out, but they do both get in.
It does draw it out, but it makes the clear indication Sadako is mortified that she passed. Like, she is dreading the idea of going to this school.
You know what? I honestly asked myself, why did she say no? She sees her score, she goes, no. And I'm like, oh, she didn't get in. And they're like, oh, I got in. Was she confused? But you're right. She wants to have failed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they both get in and they get put into different dorms, and Sadako hates class. Rika is the star pupil. She literally gets to end class on the first day with the everybody rise. And Rika becomes instantly really popular. She's really good at debating over tea with the other ladies because she has that 100-year-old wisdom inside her, so she can just talk philosophy and blow them away, and she becomes really popular. Sadako, kind of a country bumpkin, struggling with class, and everyone is talking very refined, and Sadako is not that way, so no one likes her. There's even one part where she says hi to Rika in the morning, and everyone's like, "That's not how you address a lady of her stature," and they're offended for Rika. Also, she gets put into study hall because her grades are slipping, and then at study hall, this girl's like, "You'll probably get stuck in the special class. If you get stuck in special class, that's where they hide you, because they don't want bad students to be a part of the curriculum."
Mm-hmm.
But they also want your parents' money.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because someone else is paying for them, right?
Yes, it's Irie. Irie, the creepy guy.
That's right. Yeah, I think he's paying for both of them to go.
Yes, Irie, the creepy coach, is paying for both of their scholarships.
Creepy coach, doctor, clinic,
Lieutenant
guy.
Yeah.
Who wanted to adopt Sadako
and marry.
And marry her in a maid suit.
And put her in a maid out. Yeah. And so after that morning where she insults everyone when she says hi to Rika. She's like, I just need to remind Rika. And Rika tells her friends, like, don't badmouth her. She's really good at stuff. She's great at building traps and and doing stuff like that. Well, so the next day, Sadako's like, I have an idea to really to bring her back to her old self. She had called her a phony. Why are you being so phony? And she does her bedpans or whatever they are, wash basins falling from the ceiling. Except for this is a chandelier in a giant foyer.
And they're all metal, not plastic.
They're all metal, and they fall on top of Rika and her friends, and one of Rika's friends gets her eye cut open. And so the principal / teacher runs in and is like, who's responsible for this? And is all upset. And she asks Rika, do you know who did this? And Rika's like, no, I do not. And then the teacher leaves, and Rika's friend runs out, and she's like, we totally know who did this. Her Sadako is a super trap maker we had just found out the day before. So they throw Sadako into solitary confinement.
Yeah. Whoa.
In an orange jumpsuit.
Yeah, literally
Harsh.
there's a prison thing at the bottom of the school.
Harsh. And I mean, I've heard like horror stories about things like this. Maybe they're true, but it does seem a little far-fetched. I don't know.
It seems so extreme that a high school would have a literal prison with solitary confinement rooms.
Well, I mean, it does seem like because it's a St. Lucas, right? So I'm assuming that it's a Catholic school or just a religious one in general. So that's, I don't know. I know that they get really serious sometimes. I don't know. Maybe they have something like that. I would need to research this, but I'm curious now.
I assume she'd be like expelled or something, not
Right.
thrown in prison.
Well, but then they don't get any money.
Right.
So this is where she reaches her breaking point of like, I wish I had just said no. And she's not crazy yet,
No.
but it's clear.
She's even like, she regrets causing harm to the girl. She's like, I didn't mean to hurt anybody.
Right.
She genuinely felt bad.
Yeah. And she also was putting a lot of blame on herself. You know, I wish I had said no. I wish I had been firmer. It never, I don't think at any point she was like, this is Rika's fault.
I
think
just
she ended with that, but I'm not sure.
I just feel like we're getting the plot of Mean Girls as the motivation for a super psychopath.
Yes, absolutely.
I just wish it wasn't high school, and I think Rika is being a B word, and yes, she did offer to help Sadako. Jeremy, you had already made that point to me
Multiple times.
multiple times, but she literally begged her friend to come along in this life, and then is like, "Peace out."
I don't think that's fair.
I think it's a little fair. It's a
She
big deal that
pieced out-
Sadako went with her.
She pieced out when Sadako couldn't get over her pride and told her no and pushed her away. And she's like, well, if you're not going to hang out with me or accept my help to study, I don't know what else to do with my time. I guess I'll go hang out and have tea. Like, but I don't see how this is all on Rika. Sure, Rika talked her into it, but this is Sadako not saying no in the bookstore. And
To clarify,
Yeah.
I don't think it's all on Rika. I think it's on both of them. But I do think Rika is carrying some of the blame. I just don't see she's doing
I think
as
a
much
lot
as
less.
she should for someone she made come to this new life and who clearly is having trouble adjusting. And she's like, well, if she doesn't want my help, she's on her own.
well, if you offer help and they walk away from you, like, what are you supposed to do? Continue to chase after them?
It's literally her roommate. You could do a little bit more.
They're not in the same room. What are you talking about?
They grew up. I mean, like literally their whole lives they've been roommates, and like they're not just hey that person I used to know. That is a sister. Like you could do more than oh well she said no. Like show up with study books anyway. Something. This girl changed her entire life for you, and you're like yeah, but having tea with those proper girls is so much fun.
Well, I guess, the anime doesn't show us if that she never tried, but yeah, it also doesn't show us that, so we don't have that context.
The only thing that I can add, because I agree with both you guys' perspectives here, the only thing I can add is that it's important to keep in mind that Rika has lived 100 years of deaths just trying to get to this point. And I think for her, I can imagine she's probably looking at Sadako and thinking, you're safe now. I'm safe now. This is all good. Whatever issues there are, probably very minor ones. Nobody's going to die. So if you don't want my help, then I'm sure we're still going to get along. I'm still sure we're still going to make it.
I have no issue with Sadako or with Rika moving on with her life for specifically the reason you just said. Like, literally, I've got us to the point where we survive. I'm 100 years old. This is my dream. I'm going to go do that. What bothers me is that she begs Sadako over and over to join her in it.
Yeah. I did she do it over and over? I think she just did it that one time, right?
Literally in 2 different loops. But literally
Okay.
going out of her way of like, I will be there to help you, and you will not, you will never be alone if you come with me to do this, and I really want you there.
Yeah.
If it was, hey, I'm going, and Sadako's like, well, then I will go too, that's kind of different. But it was important to Rika that Sadako join her. And so I just don't think she's doing enough. But I also think, Sadako is to blame as well. She's rejecting help. She's pushing Riko away at the same time. I think they're both to blame in this situation. But my big worry is that after all these mutilations, now Rika's going to be like, you're right, I was a little bit of a mean girl. This is partially my fault. No, you were a mean girl a little bit. Nothing you got was deserved. Like the metal pots falling on your head was maybe what you deserved.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the end of your punishment for being a mean girl. It's high school. I was an a-hole in high school, I'm sure, to someone. It's high school. No one's a good person in high school. We're trying to figure out how to be good people.
Yeah.
Marika's 100 years old. She have figured out. No.
100 years of juvenile.
Okay, that was good. So after the solitary confinement, she gets a letter from Mion, and Mion's like, "Let's have a game club reunion." And this is honestly one of my favorite parts: is getting to see these characters grown up. Mion's driving the van. She's going to college now with both Keiji and Rena. And I like that it's implied that Mion and Keiichi have started a relationship, or that they still like each other. This was cool. And then they all go back to the village, to their old village school, and they play with their old tainted cards the old way with the cheating. And Sadako loves it. And they have all these funny punishments of wear cat ears, wear a bathing suit, and then Keiji loses. He has to do all punishments at the same time.
Real missed opportunity here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that. But there was definitely some fan service snuck in.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
No, it's totally par for the course.
Once I've seen bowels, I'm like, I feel like fan service doesn't belong anymore.
Well, you do have a point there.
Sadako, they're all going over to the restaurant, the cosplay cafe to eat, and Sadako's like, I'm just gonna walk. I just haven't been in the village in a while. I just want to walk. And she goes back to her and Rika's old house up by the shrine, and there's a sound that's calling to her, and it's a horn. And when she touches it, she goes to the void. Apparently, Rika had found one of these horns too.
That was broken?
But it was broken, but also is from Hanyu, where this one is from someone who would later be named Yao.
You.
Overgurt? No.
Yeah. Omagerd too.
Yeah, so now she's in the void, and she's giving the power to fulfill her wish, which basically turns her into a time looper, even though she doesn't quite understand that yet. And she wakes up back in 1983.
So this was another thing that kind of confused me, is that the intensity of her wish was as strong as the intensity of Rika's wish to not die or to keep her friends alive. Like, this, maybe the threshold of getting your wish granted is just that low that you can be like, I'm miserable. I'm just not happy.
I wonder how how Rika got the wish of I don't want to die, but while she was still alive and had not time looped yet.
Yeah, maybe she saw her friends dying or something, or thought she was going to die, got scared. But yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, but so there's someone who looks similar to Hanyu, the short girl with the horns, but she's a full tall woman and has much bigger horns, and it's clearly a little bit sinister. And she's like, yeah, I'll give you this power of time looping. The cost is you gotta be entertaining to me. So I want you to have some fun with it. and yeah, her wish is I want to be with Rika and not get separated. And she's like, okay, well, I've given you the power. She wakes up in 1983. Sadako's like, I guess I just dreamt about the last 5 years of my life. But cool, whatever. they defeat the time loop again, Rika's time loop. And then a year later, Rika's like, hey, I want to go to this other school. And Sadako's like, let's not do that. I don't want to. But she buys a book anyway. And after she eventually starts giving in, and then Rika's like, I know you're worried. I know. And she's like, you'll leave me. It won't go well. I won't fit in there. And she's like, I won't leave you. I'll help you if there's problems. And we'll be by each other's side the whole time. And then we jump cut to the end of, of the high school, and it's all exactly the same. And she's like, you freaking filthy liar.
Yeah. Now, also, if you study the same books for double the years,
Right? That's what I
aren't
was
you
thinking.
more likely to succeed?
I did have that thought, like, why is school still hard for you? You've done this twice now.
Yeah.
You know how many people wish for that?
Yeah, exactly.
So the scene is Sadako is like, hey Rika, I just want to give you a hug underneath the chandelier.
Oh god.
She drops the chandelier on both of them.
Does Sadako know Rika time loops as well?
No.
That was introduced when she first goes in.
Nope.
Okay, so she doesn't know. Okay.
I know she's a time loop. She finds out later. She's literally told. But yeah, at this point does not know that she's a time looper. She barely understands that she's a time looper, but at this point has figured it out. And that's why she kills them both. Or no, does she know she's going to time loop when she drops the chandelier?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
She snapped her finger.
she's been told she's been given the power to.
This is our first snap. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I don't have anything.
That's an interesting question. Actually, I'm not sure if she was explicitly told this is how it works or you will be.
I thought she was told she had the power to grant her wish, and then wakes up in 1983 as like a weird
and
dream.
she doesn't understand. You're right.
But everything does repeat, so she would probably figure it out a little bit. But does she understand that by dropping that on her, she's going to reset the loop?
I'm 99% sure that she was told initially, when you die, you get reset.
Okay.
Yes, you're right, Jeremy. She did say that. She didn't use the word loop or time loop or anything like that, but she did say you will reset every time you die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she loops again, and this time she's like, nope, not going to the academy. This is dumb. And she's like, you got to pick. You pick the academy or me. And Rika's like, well, I don't want to pick. She's like, oh, wrong answer. Jumps in front of a truck.
Yes. Jeez.
Then this time it's June 4th, 1984, and she takes Rika out to the woods, and they go up to. This is the same. My daughter pointed out. This is the hill from the OP that Rika runs up. They go up that hill to the cliff overlooking the village, and Sadako's like, "Look how beautiful this village is. This is the perfect place on earth. Like life is so great here. Let's just always be here together." And Rika's like, "Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Also, I want to leave." And Sadako's like, oh, wrong answer, and slits her own throat.
Yeah.
With the kitchen knife. Then she does stuff like at school, she tries tearing the study book apart and then stabs herself with a pencil. Then it shows them literally having a fight, and they fall into the river and both die. And then we see in the void, like every time this happens, a new shard is created. And it made me wonder every time we saw Rika in the room full of shards, but I think those were her shards.
Those were Rika's,
Rika shards. But
she's
yeah,
already lived
every
through.
time you loop, it creates a new shard. So
And also, this demon is just like, this is great. You are doing a fantastic
this
job.
is amazing. So yeah, what Sadako's void had been shardless when she first started, and now it's starting to fill up every time she does this. Then this is where she learns that she talks to the demon lady, and she learns, yeah, Rika was in her own loop, and she escaped. And she's like, here's all the shards that she had gone through, and she's like, can I see them? And so she watches one and the horrible death dismemberment, what we're used to from the beginning of the anime. Yep. And she's like, can I watch all of them? And she's like, that'll take 100 years. Okay. And so she sits there and for 100 years watches all of Rika's time loops so that she knows them all by heart as well. Yeah, that's a level of insanity.
Yeah, just a tad. And I think it's at this point that she asks her, like, because they come up with this idea that basically doing this makes you immortal. But she's like, well, to a point, because the cost of looping is your mind. Mm-hmm. And so that it makes Rika's feat just that much more impressive that she hasn't gone off the deep end by this point.
Right, but she as the demon points out, she basically did break, but managed to get saved by Hanyu and pull out of it and win at the end.
Right.
And so Sadako's like, well, then I'll just break her again, and then I'll get what
that's what you do for your friend that you love so much.
And so this demon grants her power. So this is what I want you to explain to me, Jason. I wrote down, what I understood is that as long as Sadako dies second in a loop, she will follow Rika to whatever loop she goes to next. But I didn't understand the memory part. So what?
So she wanted because at the time it was very much, after they had escaped the time loop, because she was because Sadako's loop was no longer Rika's loop after that point. She was no longer remembering the loops because her time scale kept going.
Rika's not looping. Only
right.
Sadako is.
And so Sadako wanted Rika to remember Sadako's deaths as well. Well, not deaths, but her loops as well. Basically, I want to double her time, or for every time that I loop, I want her to also remember those along with her own loops. Basically, increasing the chances, or at least to break her.
And they changed the loop entry point. No, it always was 1983. For Sadako, she always started that, which is weird because she always waited 1 year to find out if Rika was gonna go to the school or not, and then committed suicide. It's still, and the rules of double time loopers is very confusing and theoretical, but it seems to me that the Rika that's getting caught in Sadako's 1 year time loop wouldn't remember that she went to the high school, but the Rika we saw like back in episode 2 does remember that she broke out of her time loop and spent 5 years after. Somehow she retained the memories of a loop she hasn't, that the Rika who's caught in Sadako's loop never got to.
Right, and I think that's because of Sadako's demon that made her remember.
That would make sense, I guess.
Yeah.
So the way that I understood it is that because there's all these different shards, and whenever Sadako goes into a shard, it creates a new one, basically. Whenever she wakes up again, it creates a new shard. And the same thing was happening with Rika, and the fact that this demon's able to bring over Rika's shards would mean that she should be able to, like, grab the Rika that's in that shard that Sadako created, and then hook that Rika to Sadako. Because otherwise, Sadako's just hitting different Rikas every time she resets. Right. So there's no long-term game. But if she actually attaches her that way, then she can have a long-term game on trying to affect Rika. Now, the thing that this confused me about is, if that's the case, are all of these Rikas jumpers in their own patterns? Are they all loopers in their own patterns? Because some of them should have a history of looping and others shouldn't.
Right, that's kind of my point, is that when Sadako hooks to a Rika, that Rika isn't necessarily the Rika that went to St. Luca's Academy and was drinking over tea and stuff. This would be a Rika who had lived up to that point of Sadako dying and then going to the next loop, which in this case ends up being like 1 week, but at this point I think it's 1 year.
Mm-hmm. So my understanding was, like, for instance, where she takes her to the cliff she says, well, I want you both. And she said, I pick one, you picked wrong. And I think that makes its own shard. That is independent, even though it ends up happening within one of Rika's shards. It ends up splitting and becoming its own shard. And I think what she was asking the demon to do is make her remember those as well.
That's not what I got.
Oh, okay.
It would be a hand wavy explanation to why, because I mean, literally, the Rika we met in the beginning of this anime remembers going all the way to St. Luca's Academy.
But at that point, she hadn't, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is I think that's what Sadako asked her to do. Is
she remembers going 5 years past, but is still stuck back in 1983, which means Sadako has trapped her in 1983. But the one trapped in 1983 technically hasn't gone 5 years into the future yet. Right. Which means somehow those 5 years of future memories have come back to 1983 Rika. And the demon saying, I'll just do that to screw with her, is about the only thing that makes sense. But
no, that's exactly why.
Well, I don't remember her saying that, but that's what...
So remember that she couldn't remember what had happened in previous loops. That was one of the problems that Riko was having before. And that would explain why she didn't remember that she had attended the school. It would also explain why she has to study for anything. If she's already gone to the school, why is she studying to get in the school? Because she doesn't remember what she studied.
Right, but we did see her get her power reawakened, and she had even said, I miss being at that academy. And she pointed out to Juan, I was at the academy. I went 5 years past this point.
But that was only when she was in the zone, not when she was in the world. When she was in a shard, she couldn't remember.
That's true, but it's not like it...
So that would mean that basically it is the jumping Rika. It is the looping Rika every time. And what's happening is that when Sadako is coming back into that shard, it's not a different Rika. She's actually grabbing.
So when you're in the void, it's literally like your spirit of all shards coming together.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I don't like it, but I'll accept it. All right, then we see a loop where they're at the game tournament. This was in the second arc that we had seen. And Sadako basically tells Kaichi what's going to happen. You're going to play the game of life. I'm going to go over there and play memory. He's like, wow, you can see the future? She's like, I can see the future. Watch me go see the future. And it just shows her winning at the game of memory through trial and error and killing herself every time she doesn't win perfectly so that she'll win perfectly next time. And and this is and again, it just shows her snap and the reset. But of course, the implication is she then goes and commits suicide so that she'll get the free reset.
And how petty is that? Like, because you haven't won this particular move, you want to win the entire game of memory on your first turn, so you kill yourself dozens and dozens of times. Like,
and
wow!
What if you get like 20 moves in and you make one mistake because you kind of misremembered one of the other? Well, I gotta try again.
Yeah, that is so the level of caricature is just so high here. It's amazing.
So this is where she asked the demon her name, which is EUA, so it's EUA. Because she's like, a name. She's like, that's perfect. Anyway. It is also weird when Sadako first shows up in the void, that demon talks to her like, oh, you finally found me. And like they're old friends. And she kept mentioning her. And even Sadako's like, I've never met you before. What are you talking about?
Did she call her child of man?
Yeah, she calls her child of man, but she acts like this isn't something that's been... Mm-hmm. It just makes me wonder if Sadako is going to like lose her memory and then this has all happened before, like loops and loops, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't care anymore, so...
I was wondering if these demons, quote unquote, I don't know what they are, whether are they manifestations like of some spiritual aspect of the individual, because the little one that was sweet and innocent was so good, kind of reflected Rika.
I think they're somehow connected to Lord Ermagerd, but I don't know how.
Yeah, I think
you're probably right.
I think it's connected to the lore that Mio was telling them back in the first half. But what is truth and what is not truth is really muddy.
Mm.
Anyway, after asking the name, Sadako's like, I'm noticing something. They're remembering previous loops. Random people are remembering things that have happened in other loops.
Or
Yeah,
Keiji.
thank you.
Oh my god.
And the goddess was like, yeah, that's how powerful I am. The more that this happens, the more memories will build up and it'll start seeping into other characters. And especially people who are close to you that'll have and like family or close friends. She was like, oh, not family. And then we jump to the uncle and he sees a brutal death twice. we
His
see
own.
him we see him see a brutal death, wake up and then get killed, and then wake up from that. Basically he's having dreams of memories of other loops. And he
turns him straight.
Yeah, he becomes a
Yeah.
good guy. We see him play pachinko and seeing like a father and daughter and like being reminiscent. And he goes to the village and he actually runs into Sadako and he's like, hey, I have these chocolate treats. I don't know if you'd like them, but he's like, clearly
Super
I ruined you. I ruined your life, but
Yeah.
I kind of want to do something nice and I don't know how to take that step. Doesn't redeem the character. Redeem is
Right.
not the right word, but he is now not the character he was before, what we thought he was.
He's trying to make amends.
And
Right.
he even at one point sees her getting picked on by the thugs, and he defends her and gets arrested. Well, they get arrested by the cops, and the cops bring him in for questioning. And Sadako points out that he actually saved me, so he doesn't get arrested. And Oishi's like, "Why are you acting different? You know, you would never do this." He's like, "No, I just wanted to fight some people." He's like, "Sure, yeah, let's go with that. Let's pretend you didn't just save your niece." And he goes out and he talks to Sadako and he's like, I would like to see you sometimes, maybe have dinner and not live with me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but if you want to see me sometime, hey, I could stop by. And he reaches out to her and she flinches back because of remembering being abused. And he's like, no, I guess I don't have a right to ask that. And he leaves. And she goes back to the goddess after this loop and is like, that's annoying. This makes things complicated. She's like, you're worried about your uncle? She's like, no, I can use my uncle. But there's another person I'm worried about. And the person she's worried about, we find out, is Mio. Basically, remember when all the sixes had rolled that Rika had gotten upset about? That was because of Sadako's time looping. And she even points out, like, the harder Rika tried to get away from the village, the harder the village fought to keep her. By literally, the looping, like, opposes your wish. And the more Sadako loops, the more the village is opening up and letting Rika free because it's the opposite of her wish. Literally, she's making it easier for Rika. She's making all the things come up sixes. It's all her fault. Things are going right. And the thing that happens is that Mio starts getting flashes of her own deaths, and we see one of them where she actually like is forced to commit suicide by the mercenaries.
That was so rough.
Yeah, she basically has. We see like she had cared about her grandfather and his research and had wanted to redeem him, and that's behind her motivations. But now is basically what we had saw with Rika. I want to confess. I don't want to do this. I want to be a better person. Becomes a key witness, and we see her going towards that. She even has a conversation with Sadako where she's like, "I'm thinking about quitting my job," and Sadako's like, "Wait, what?" So as a result of this, Sadako sneaks into the clinic and learns the key password
Trial
on the
and error.
space.
Again.
Yeah.
One.
Again,
One, two.
I
One,
was
two,
frustrated
three.
by this because this is very easy to assume when there's a time looper and there's something that they want to have, they're going to have it. It's just trial and error until they get it right. The fact we had to take this many episodes to get to reveal bugs me, but this is the moment Sadako steals that and now has the ability to always inject anyone with the parasite and make them crazy and kill Rika. And basically we land, she's in the void and like, no, now I know how to get that. Now I'll be able to ruin the timeline every time. and take matters into my own hand, and I will win. And that's the end. And so we end where the anime began. We're about to go back into those couple of arcs where, you know, things go weirdly wrong when they shouldn't have. Rika knows how to fix those arcs. She fixes them. Hey, don't be paranoid, and so you won't kill Rena. But Sadako
Rena
is
goes
on the other
nuts.
side. And I think it was my daughter pointed out to me when in the first arc Rena went to the nurse by herself. Sadako left a little bit after that to check on her. And I don't know where she was alone with Mion. But yeah, so I'm frustrated that it's ineffective storytelling. A lot of this could have been done, I felt, in a half episode flashback, because a lot of it I felt was obvious. You have a time looper, she's evil, this is what she wants. Of course she's the one stealing the virus, making everyone crazy. We don't need a whole nother season to watch it, but I got upset, and then I sat down, and I said to myself, and I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with other When They Cry, not Higurashi especially, but there is When They Cry series that are all very similar, and they tell their stories with a mystery half and an answer half, and that's how they like to tell their stories. And while I was not ready for it, and it caught me by surprise, and I found it very ineffective storytelling. It made me think of Kingdom Hearts. I already told these guys this. Kingdom Hearts does not tell a clear and concise story. It has its very own way of telling a story. And if you go into a Kingdom Hearts not expecting it, it'll probably blast you. But if you like Kingdom Hearts and you go to play Kingdom Hearts, you know you're going to hear the word heart a million times. It's going to have a million different meanings. Characters will be multiple characters. Nothing will really make sense. And you're just kind of okay with it because that's their style. And this is very much, I think, the When They Cry style. But again, I came into it thinking this was the final episode, and to only realize I'm only as far as the beginning nearly drove me crazy. I was so angry. And I do feel for the second time I've been disappointed. So I'm not going to watch it. And the anime ends with, hey, season 2's coming. And I'm like, no. I will read about you on a wiki. But I am out. And that is how I felt at the ending of this. And like I said, I think it's mostly me. I think if you're a When They Cry fan and you know what you're getting into, you're like, perfect. I can't wait for the answer season. But for me, I'm out. How are you guys feeling about this ending?
I was very happy with it. This and I really disagree with the idea that the reveal of the drugs what came so late. The reveal of the drugs came when we found out Sadako could loop. I mean, we knew that was coming, like you said. I think what was good about the way they told Sadako's story is showed her progression from frustrated high school student to who knows how old she was by the time she got to this point where she doesn't care about the people around her. She doesn't care about herself. She is so committed to this wish of hers that she's willing to have this person that she's had this wish. I want to live with this person for the rest of my life. But I'm going to have her killed every time she tries to get away from me. I thought that was great, watching the progression of psychosis and continually justifying her actions. And because she would justify one action, she could then layer on another one to then justify it and layer on another one and just get worse and worse and worse and worse.
And Jason, I do want you to also say what you've been waiting the whole anime to say about her motivations.
Well, that is it. That's her motivation. Is sure she grew up in this environment that she's going to do whatever it takes to win, whether it means cheating or stealing or setting traps. But like I said, we watched someone that abused this power of time looping by committing suicide who knows how many times to get her way. This is what happens when we have someone with and I think that's why ReZero worked so well, is because never did Subaru want to die. Subaru avoided it at all costs. It was always a terrible experience. Same with Rika. Rika did not want to die. She wanted to have her loop continue and, live on the rest of her life. Sadako, at a moment's notice, was willing to jam a pencil into her neck to get to the next loop. She used it as a tool. It made her crazy, and here we are. And now, and I think as a horror anime, I like the idea of it ending on this bad note, because that's not a horror anime if you have a happy ending. This showed us that this is going to be an endless cycle of carnage, and it's awful. And I like that in a horror anime.
So yeah, I'm kind of right between you guys, which is really unusual.
Right?
But I really like the emphasis of the cyclical nature of it, right? Like, it's looping, and like you're saying, Jason, this is going to go on forever. The loop doesn't end. And even without knowing what you brought up, Troy, about how the next season is probably going to be an answer season, just the idea that this would go on forever was really cool to me. I thought that was a cool touch.
Maybe forever is a misstatement on my part. It will go on for as long till one of them breaks. And the problem is that Rika doesn't know that she's in a battle of wills.
Yeah,
here's my problem with that, Jason. Rika did break. Sadako, we saw Sadako beat her, and then Rika figured out Sadako's a time looper. We've already had that happen. So, hey, that's really cool what you're talking about, but that's all happened. And now I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to move on from that, and I've been ready to move on
I see what you're saying.
Since that episode. I needed 1-2 episodes of backstory of, hey, this is how Sadako got to this point. I didn't need half the season to be about that. I want to see Rika and Sadako go to time looping town against each other. And now I'm gonna have to wait. The next season is probably gonna be 24 episodes. The first half is just going to be the first half of this, from Sadako's point of view, I think. And then we'll finally maybe get to the battle. I don't want to wait 12 episodes to find out what happened after Rika pulled the gun in that classroom. I want to know now, and I'm very frustrated about it.
I have a feeling that the second season will start with the gun pull. Because, like you said, you have the mystery half and then you have the answer path. The second part of this season was definitely an answer path, answer story.
I think it'll do because we had questions from those first arcs. They're like, man, it's weird. We'll never go back and see those again. Now I think we will. I think we'll find out why Shion was in the well. Now we kind of know why Rika and Sadako were killed by the same knife in the same room in the first arc. Who killed them? That's weird. I think I know who did it. But again, last time I complained, hey, we didn't get this. I wish they had done this. And then they quickly solved it. I can definitely see them doing that again, but because I ended disappointed twice, I'm not willing to trust them a third time.
Oh, yeah, no, I totally understand that. I think that's just a matter of taste.
I did want to say that when it comes to the level of caricature that this has, I wind up not agreeing a little bit with you, Jason, in regards to the pacing of how she became crazy, because it happens immediately. How long does it take for her to kill herself the first time? Well, we can count it. It's only 4 years, right? 3 years of studying or whatever, 1 year. And then she just steps in front. No, it wasn't even that. It was because she went through the life, failed at school, touched the bone. Then she went through school again, right? Killed her with the chandelier.
Started to fail again.
Immediately, she kills Rika and herself. After what is that? 4 years, 3 years, something like that? If we're guessing, it's a year into the school.
Rika had said she had been there for 5 years, so I would say for that second time through high school, probably only 4 years. I don't think they got to the second year when they were going to go back and have to do it all over again.
So 4 years, and she's willing to kill herself. And then the next time, it's not even that. It's 1 year, because it's to the point where Rika's going to ask about the book. So 1 year, and she throws herself in front of a vehicle. And then we see however many times that she kills herself. But we know how many times, because there's only 6 shards floating in there. So there's only 6 times that she takes the opportunity to do this. So it's only been a decade, maybe, that she's killed herself many, many times in this decade. 6 times? And so to me, that kind of seems really fast. For her to go from, I'm trying to convince her, to, well, I'll just kill myself because this manner of convincing her didn't work this one time. I'm not going to keep trying until she gets in the door of the school, But then
It drives me crazy. She waits a year, but then the moment they're at the bookstore, it's like, I can't go any further than this.
yeah. But then on top of that, think about the permutations it takes. Like, what are all the permutations that you have of playing a 52 card game where you've got a match 2, right? You've got half of that. So you multiply that each one on itself, dropping 1 each time. You're going to have so many times that she has to kill herself. And then what's worse is when she's trying to figure out the code on that briefcase. What number does it wind up being? We're looking at like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 4. And she starts it with 1, 2, 3. So what we're supposed to get the impression, at least the impression I got, was that she literally counted up and killed herself every time. It's either that or she's trying random numbers and keeping track of the random numbers, and that's not going to be an effective way to do it because you don't have paper, you're looping. So you have to do it by counting up. So that means she counted up over 1 million numbers to get that briefcase open. So, like, to me, that is just a level of caricature where how do you do this 1 million times and still care that much about this person? How do you stay that focused over millions of just killing yourself over a briefcase number? So, I don't know. It becomes unbelievable to me at that point. Like, her motivation would just get lost, I think, in a sea of that many years. Just because it's not a strong enough emotion. It's not a strong enough reason. Like, I want to be with my friend. That's just, I'm sorry. It's not enough for millions of
but not
deaths.
at that high school.
Right, exactly.
She could have used her looping to get good at high school, too.
Right? Wouldn't that have been a much easier solution? Like,
It wouldn't have fit the story theme, though.
No, it
and
wouldn't.
Also, she was going more and more crazy with every death.
Yeah, she was.
And again, I think maybe being an abuse victim might have something to do with it. Like, what's a little bit of pain to me? I've lived through nothing but horrible times. Yeah. Jumping in front of a truck isn't no thing to me.
Yeah, although they did make a big point of saying that her brother got in the way and took all the abuse for her. But still, I agree with you. She was an abuse victim. If nothing else, it's psychological, even if she didn't get hit very much. And that's just as bad.
Yeah, it's bad enough that she flinched when he just reached out to shake her hand.
Clearly caused problems. But I don't know. That's where I'm like, I love it for how it handles it thematically and how you have that repetition and everything. And I love the idea and I like how it ended. But I had a really hard time with her.
I guess my summation would be I like the story. The way it's being told feels so inefficient to me. And again, it's their style, so that's on me. That it's just rubbing me the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all that said, even though we've said most of it, let's do our final reviews. Unless you have anything else, Jason?
No.
Again,
I think
defender.
I think it comes down to taste. I already told you, like I said, I kind of laid out my reasons why I really enjoyed this horror. And that's I think that's a big part of it is recognizing we're not looking at someone that's reasonable.
Right.
And it was established that looping makes you crazy. So, but I did like watching the making of a supervillain, and the protagonist change was pretty fun. Like, I don't know if I've seen an anime where we change protagonists that many times. And that's actually a really big challenge because you come to the problem of like where you have these stories that are like in one location. It can get pretty dull pretty quick. And I think with Guts flying, it's definitely this. So for a horror anime, I got to give it like a 4. Like, as far as storytelling chops, I lean more towards a 3, but I really enjoyed this as a horror anime, so I'm going to stick with a 4.
All right, Jeremy, what'd you give it?
Well, first I want to hit one thing that I am not sure of, and that is there's moments, like I totally agree with you that the impression I get, and the impression I think it's trying to convey, is that it ends at the start of the anime. But when you look at the reaction everybody had to her playing the memory game, they all came and they gathered around her desk. That didn't happen in the first half of the anime. And there's another scene.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I know she did well at it in that loop. But she
But it
seem
didn't
to do
seem
it
like
perfect.
this.
Yeah.
Right. And so that makes me suspicious that maybe it's not looping back to the start of the anime. I have a little suspicion there.
Also, she does seem to be looping. Where remember we complained last time that this isn't really looping. This is more just traveling to parallel universes.
Mhm.
Whereas Sadako seems to be more in an actual time loop.
So,
I think that's just how she treats it.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
to put a little context on that, we could have gotten her like halfway through getting it 100% right because she dies in this loop. So maybe she just waits till she gets killed every time.
But my point is,
She won.
So like we saw in the beginning, we saw 3 arcs for Rika, right? And only one had a game tournament. But then when Sadako goes through, she goes to a game tournament multiple times over and over again until she gets the game tournament right.
Right.
I don't
That's a good
quite
point.
I don't quite get that, but I don't think it matters at this point. Let's keep going with our reviews. Jeremy, what's your score?
Actually, that bugs me really bad. But yes, so I want to give it a 4. I really want to give it a 4, but I think I have to give it a 3 because there's just some things that I see, like what you just mentioned, and other things that just kind of they stick in my craw a little bit. Like, is it shards? Is it looping? Is it consistent for all the characters? Maybe it's just information that has to come out in the second season, but this was 24 episodes. I think that's enough time to give me whatever I need to explain some of the basic rules so that I understand the rules going into season 2. So yeah, I got to give it 3. I'll definitely be reading the wiki on the second season.
I was strongly going for 2 for everything I've said. But then I remembered I really liked that the story arc, the third story arc, the uncle, all that work they did to get him arrested, and he wasn't abusing her. The fact that this, I really do like the looping story, the story that's here. It's really good. But then I remember that the eyes lighting up is for nothing, and I go back down to a 2. I give it a 2.
That's great.
All right.
I think this is our most divergent score that we've done in a while.
It's
Yeah.
the lowest I've been on an anime in a while. And I still have a lot of positive things to say about it, but like I said, I walked away angry, and that hasn't happened for a long time. All right, our next anime is my pick, and I'm picking Jujutsu Kaisen. This is a action anime / horror. It's a shonen battle anime, but there's like creepy, dark spirits things going on. Think Bleach, but darker, I guess. But one thing I do know, it's been a hit anime since it has come out. It won anime awards for like Best OP. It's definitely popular. It is a 20, I believe 24. It's at least 2 podcast episodes that we'll have to do the first half and the second half. I should know how many episodes there are as I'm announcing.
There's no
this.
prequels we should need to worry about, right?
No, this is an original series. I was going to pick Wonder Egg Priority, but I've heard some dark things, and I want to preview it before I officially check it out. Every time I tell my teenage daughter, "Hey, I want to watch this soon," she's like, "Are you sure? Are you sure about that?" I'm like, okay, maybe I should watch the first episode before we put that on the podcast.
I was 100% convinced you were going to come to us with the house husband.
Yeah, I was too.
If it's only 5 episodes long and they're only 15 minutes each, so it would not work for the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Which is one of the reasons I went ahead and just watched it. Let's just do the first 12 episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen, and we will talk about that, and then we'll talk about the second half afterwards. I'm excited for Shonen again. It's Fire Force was our last one. Yeah, Fire Force was our last one. It has been a while. I've got the itch. Hopefully this scratches it, and I have to go into it remembering like I'll never see the end of this. 200 episodes from now, I'll never know what happens. But I'm looking forward to it, especially since it has a horror theme. So that should be fun.
You're telling me you're not caught up on One Piece?
I'm still struggling to keep up with My Hero Academia, which is about to start season 5.
Oof.
I've fallen behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Season 3 for me.
I got to the festival arc, and I'm like, I'm having trouble watching. The overall battle was great, though. I just can't get past the festival arc. All right, I will by season 5 eventually. Let's go ahead and say goodbye. But first, if you have any thoughts on Higurashi When They Cry Gou, parts 1 or 2, please feel free to reach to us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or email the animebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and we will be happy to respond to that. Any thoughts on anything that we discussed today? Like Jason said, we were a little bit diverse in our opinions on this one, so we could definitely use some support for Jason, because
I was wrong.
It's not fair that he has to defend the sins of this anime, but he does. He has to.
How dare you?
All right, let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Sayonara.
Nipa.
Pong.